702.
Live
On the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7.
And 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
Good morning, it's 7 minutes past 9. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela show. I'm Tshidi Madia, head of politics at EWN, but for now, I'm here playing caretaker. I'll be keeping you company while Clement is away. I think the team has put together a solid show for you today.
702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
So I watch soccer, definitely watch soccer, but I'm not like a diehard fan. And I don't get teams' names correct unless you're Real Madrid and sometimes Sundowns or sometimes Pirates. So my knowledge is quite limited, but I do know that I am concerned about some things that we have been seeing. So I know that the first leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinal has been happening. So that's what I want to talk about. That first, I think it's important to congratulate, yes, Sundowns, Stellenbosch, right, FC, as well as Pirates, because they've advanced towards the semis. But last night's game at Orlando Stadium, which ended, I think, on a 0-0, meaning Pirates goes through because MC Alger from Algeria needed to win by 2 goals in order to move forward. But that was not to be. And the end result was that violence that we saw. I didn't watch the game, but I was speaking to Michael Pedro, who was doing the sports, and he raised concerns about not only the fans, but the players' behavior, saying that at every turn, the response by players themselves to decisions taken by the referees that didn't go their way elicited some sort of a response, and that was problematic. And it's different from last week's game with Sundowns, isn't it? Where they played Esperance. There was an issue around the fans. There was an issue about how they left the Gautrain, from my reading. I saw some of the tweets and the visuals about what was happening at the stadium. What is your reading of that situation? We all know about hooliganism and how in the past a lot of European teams used to be found wanting as far as this was concerned. But I believe that it's by and large been stamped out. I hear that at the moment issues are around teams in South America, on this continent. I was trying to figure out, is it just a North African team's problem that we have? Is it that they just misbehave? What ought to be done? What do you want to see happening with regards to the soccer matches? What is CAF expected to do, right? Is it a question of sanctions? Do you ban fans from soccer matches? Do you fine the clubs themselves? Is it a question of law enforcement? Because I did also see some commentary that there just wasn't sufficient security and that the police were also overwhelmed. What is your reading of what happened yesterday? Is it a culture thing? Mawande Mateza from also EWN Sports saying to me, it's the issue of ultra culture that is definitely a thing with teams from Northern Africa. And that seems to be part and parcel of that problem that we have. I just wanted your reading on that. The violence makes me uncomfortable. That if things don't go your way, that's how you behave. I enjoy, mind you, the rivalry, even between South Africa and some of the West African teams. I definitely enjoy the back and forth that happens between South Africa and Nigeria. But if it had to resort to what we've seen at the stadiums, what would people say? I'm very uncomfortable with what I've been seeing at the end of these matches. And the fact that, there's a term even for ultra culture almost feels like it's been allowed to continue. What did the European leagues do in order to bring it to an end? What's successful there that we aren't considering, that we need to consider? So I do want to have that conversation. I want your thoughts on that one. 011-883-0702. That's where you can call in to share your thoughts about what you think needs to happen. Is it just a North African crisis on this continent? And you can also send in voice notes or WhatsApps. That number is 072-702-1702.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
All right, so I am taking your voice notes. I'm trying to make sense of that particular issue. I'm not a big soccer fundi. I even went to my brother and I asked him, and my brother said to me, what tends to happen is that North African teams are also bullies. And that's something that it seems like a general consensus. People are saying North African teams have always been bullies, even during the era. Yeah, Coach Pizzo Musimani used to get annoyed when he was coach dealing with the North African teams. Is that the thing? Is it a question of they undermine teams down south? Is that it? What's your view? send your voice notes through.
Tshidi, my sister. CAF needs to stand up now and deal with the North African teams. This intolerance that they have and subtle racism. I call it subtle racism because seemingly they don't deem themselves weak enough to be defeated by the teams that are on the south. We've seen it with Sundowns. We've now experienced it with Pirates as well. So CAF needs to sanction these teams. It can't be that we are saying this is an attitude of South African teams. We've never had such confrontations before with Southern African teams. So CAF needs to take a stand up and sanction these North African teams. Until such time there are penalties and punishments for these teams, this is going to continue.
Tshidi, good morning. On the violence at Orlando Pirates point, I'm not exonerating my team. However, if you go on Twitter, you'll find a video of Coach Pitso where he refers to a common trend among the North African teams and their violence and not wanting to accept defeat. They think they own the CAF Championship. 2, the Sundowns game had similar violence after the game, the recent one. So it's not just the Pirates game. It's these chaps, when they come, they do not want to accept defeat. X here. Thanks.
Morning, 702. I honestly think it is definitely a culture thing because we have rivals, Sundowns against Chiefs, Pirates against Sundowns, but we don't act like this. We just go home, we lost, we cry, new day, new game. It's definitely a culture thing, and I don't want to put the R word out there. So yeah, I think maybe there's just a cultural difference, and yeah, they're just all losers.
Tshidi, good morning. Yeah, on the football, particularly the CAF Champions League, we've got a problem of the Northern Africans, and then I will say this in terms of the regions, because they seem to have this sense of entitlement. I don't know who told them that they are the best and then they are entitled to win every match and every tournament they participate in. If you look at history, they've been doing this, be it at the club level or national team level. Whenever decisions are not going their way, they will obviously react and show that by frustration, as it happened in the match against Mamelodi Sundowns, even when you look at the match against Stellenbosch down in Cape Town, and now the latest one including against Orlando Pirates yesterday. So I think we need to call a spade here. The problem or the elephant in the room here is the North Africans players, including their fans. They've got sense of entitlement, and that is wrong. There's no sports a spirit of sportsmanship, and then they've demonstrated that, be it at the club level or national team level, and it's wrong, it's bad, it needs to be condemned. Joseph Rosley.
Thank you, Joseph, and all those WhatsApps, please keep them coming. So it's a question of spirit of sportsmanship, right? True sportsmanship. And yes, I'm taking the note of the R word, as one of the voice notes said. Is it about that? Is it about undermining teams that come from South Africa? I'll come back to those voice notes. I also want to bring in another topic that I'd like your thoughts on. I don't know if, and I know it's a risk of entering into this GNU conversation before we formally discuss its future a little bit later on. But I must tell you, I remain, I think, somewhat amused, but a little bit scared too, I'll be honest, when I watch how competitive the GNU partners are. When the Government of National Unity first came together, a lot of us thought, oh, this is good. They'll be competitive. They will work well for us as citizens. But what you actually see are a heck of a lot of space on social media. I don't know if you saw Tshidi Madia and Madia. So one is the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, that's Tshidi Madia. The other is Parliament's Communications Portfolio Committee Chair, Madia. They recently clashed over the SABC bill. So they're at it again. So if you listened to 702 Breakfast with Bongani Pingwa yesterday, Kusala Diko came on and she was arguing that the minister is determined to be an illegal delinquent. I think that's what she called him. She accused him of failing to follow proper processes and the law. Diko says the minister's bid to devolve power away from Sitta, that's the State Information Technology Agency, that's the current SPET, to various departments, allowing them to have the right to procure their own services, IT services, is unlawful. She's also referred to this as anti-transformation. The minister, on his part, insists this is a way to deal with Sitta's operational weaknesses. He says Diko's claims are false. And then he says that, when it comes to the issue of regulations, which is really, from my understanding, the nub of their disagreement, is that you must give the departments, that the law does give the departments the freedom to procure services outside of Sitta. Minister Tshidi Madia joins us now on the line to try and explain his part on all of this. Solly, good morning. Welcome to Radio 702. Let's start with what necessitated all of this for you. You speak about operational weaknesses from Sitta's perspective. What are the concerns that you have?
Good morning, Tshidi, and to your listeners. At the root of this is genuinely a request to help government departments to be able to meet their ICT needs at a quicker turnaround time, at a much more affordable rate, and also through a reliable service across government, whether be it at national government department level or provincial government. There's been persistent frustration with the quality of services that government department and government spheres are getting from Sitta, and those deficiencies have impacted government's ability to also meet its digital transformation aspirations. So one of the provisions which are available by law are two options. One being that the government departments can make applications to whoever the Minister of Communications is at a given time and seek exemptions from the existing prescripts in order to procure outside. The complication with that, though, is that you leave that process to the subjective views of one individual, that being, a Minister of Communications. There is also another avenue. That avenue is through a regulation that can be introduced that can help empower departments to have the freedom to say, when a government department is able to present a business case, Tshidi, and that business case must be within the prescripts of existing procurement laws and be able to prove to Sitta that instead of what you are offering, at the cost that you are offering, at the turnaround that you are offering, we are able to procure it elsewhere at a lower cost and at a quicker turnaround time. That is the key of this. And all of this is not, contrary to what the propaganda seems to suggest, a devolution of powers, is to say that departments have to have this sort of freedom in order to competitively seek resources that can help them meet their aspirations. If you were to do a survey, Tshidi, of the government ministers and across all GNU parties, you will understand the depth of the frustration that some of the inefficiencies at Sitta has impacted their ability to be able to do their job. So this is not outside the law. This fear that there is somehow acting outside of the prescripts of the law is just to make a scarecrow argument that does not have any facts around it. We have done consultation of all the executive authorities as the Sitta Act imposes, and ultimately secured the concurrence of the Minister of Finance, who is obligated by the Sitta Act when there is a regulation to give his concurrence, which is his ultimate support. And the Minister of Finance have done that. And Tshidi, if there is any legal delinquency, would all of these other steps also have endorsed the delinquency that's being alluded to? No, it is simply based on a fundamental misunderstanding or a deliberate quest to just distort the facts.
The part where they label it as anti-transformation, your response to that, you said other departments, other ministers, particularly from Treasury, is also aligned with this. then one would question, why is it perceived to be anti-transformation? Do you feel like that's also a campaign, or do you recognize where that objection stems from?
No, I mean, look, Tshidi, I think also the climate that we are in also informs some of the behavior that we are seeing. And again, that tag is not grounded on the facts. So I'll choose to stick to the facts, and that the facts indicate that this is to empower. One of the weaknesses in the current system is that governments feel that they are not able to achieve the level of efficiency that they could be achieving because of the restriction to solely procure from Sitta. And this will provide an avenue that will help improve that. It is within the law. And if, Tshidi, there is an argument that it is outside, there are channels that can be pursued where there is an indication that somehow a minister is acting effusively outside of the bounds of the law. And that hasn't been taken up, and that just shows that this is not an argument about legal compliance or not. It's a political campaign.
And you keep saying that you have made it about new battles. You're suggesting from that statement yesterday that you said that Kusala Diko's auditioning for a job. She's campaigning to take over the job, supposedly, of communication minister. That to me suggests that you'll be out of your job soon. Are you looking to quit as communications minister, Solly?
Look, individually, no, the DA will make a pronouncement once we've completed all the consultations. I think as you would have followed the conversations that's going on, there are bilateral discussions that will be taking place, and any discussion about, our future in this government will be determined by the outcome of those discussions.
Is Tshidi Madia, though, ready to vacate office?
When the DA makes the decision, as a leader within the DA, we'll inform our views in the DA, and we will go with whatever decision suits the Democratic Alliance.
Whatever decision suits the Democratic Alliance. Thank you so much. That's Minister of Communications and Digital Technology, Tshidi Madia, saying that a lot of the claims being made against him, as far as Sitta is concerned, are unfounded. He says that they are political. He speaks about the political climate and campaigning, and how the communications portfolio chair is campaigning for his job. But they actually do agree on what the issues are at Sitta, if you think about it. Parliament has been looking at the state of, State Information Technology Agency. Technology is outdated. Security is weak. There's mismanagement that they've complained about. It's also been placed at the heart of crippling many other departments. So when you are frustrated with Home Affairs, the South African Police Services, and Human Settlements, a lot of those issues sometimes stem from what's gone wrong or what is going wrong at Sitta. 011-883-0702, 072-702-1702 if you want to weigh in on this. Or of course, we're also speaking about the violence we've been seeing at the soccer games, where some people are accusing specifically North African teams of being problematic in their behavior, the so-called ultra culture. That's what they say it is. Some saying that it actually, those teams undermine South African teams. Is that the perception? But most importantly, what should CAF be doing about this?
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Good morning, our CD. Nice talking to you. To Charles Manyeka in Riverside. We are being disrespected. These guys don't respect us. Imagine if we, South African friends, were to travel to Algeria or Egypt and behave like that. Or this is no one in their right mind will go to a foreign country and act like that, because they know these consequences. In South Africa, they know our cops, our law enforcement can be bribed, and we are too nice, man. Too nice.
Tshidi, the North African team, they are used to dominance in Africa, and it seems like it's taking a different shape. These North Africans, they think they are Europeans. They think they are superior than us. You can see the stats speaks for themselves. The South African football has grown. We don't know where it came from, but it just seems like it has grown. So right now they cannot take that pressure. They can't take it anymore. They did it even with Stellenbosch. They were so violent there. Violence was just an order of the day. So it wasn't a surprise with Pirates game. Someone said to me that they're going to do it when they did it with Sundowns. They said they're going to do it in Orlando. They did exactly with an extreme that side. So I really think SAFA has to lodge a complaint with CAF and do something about this, because we cannot be treated like animals by North African people. Thank you, Sfiso.
Morning, Tshidi. Ulu here. I think we need to make this thing very clear that this is a North African problem. You will never see this happen in South Africa. It does get to a bit of skirmishes here and there, but it's a North African problem. How is it possible that Sundowns game ended in a similar way? Pirates game ends in a similar way. When we are in their countries, we get very hostile treatment. It's been a case for North Africans for a very long time. I used to work in a hotel back in 2010 in Durban, and I think it was Algeria. Yeah, Algeria was staying in our hotel. They lost, and they trashed the whole floor. The whole floor was trashed.
But my question goes back to, what is the Confederation of African Football meant to do about this? I don't know a lot about the football fraternity. I know relatively very little. But I am concerned, and I'm also worried about whether or not then, if we limit it to football in terms of behavior, or does it go beyond that as a concern? I'm very worried about that. There's a WhatsApp here that's come through that says that, and again, it's the same language. The problem is with the Northern African teams, they like to bully other teams and referees. Why are they being allowed to get away with it? Why isn't there anything being done? When people say the Pitso Mosimane era was also that, what was done to quell them then? They're allowed just to continue, and you just walk away. Coaches express frustrations and nothing happens. I don't understand that. Like I said, I don't understand the world of football. I'm also looking, supposedly, for some education, if you may, to understand why is it that it persists? What is it that the European federations did, the authorities that side, that made it come to an end? What did they do to halt it that we are not doing on this continent? What is the failure? Even if it is a superiority complex that they have, the rules must come into play. There must be some form of rules, right, that force behavioral change, surely, right? No? It's 9:30.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
It's 9:36. The Clement Manyathela shows Tshidi Madia in for Clement Manyathela. We are discussing various issues. It's the open line. We spoke just before the headlines to Tshidi Madia, Communications Minister, about his attempt to devolve powers from Sitta. Says a lot of issues around Sitta as far as operations are concerned. I see a tweet from Kingmaker, a post on X, saying Sitta reports to Malati's department. If Sitta is a weakness, that's for him to deal with instead of undermining the role that Sitta must play. Where is the cabinet resolution that endorses Soli to do what is currently embarking on? There is a clash at play, if you think about it, between Tshidi Malati and the Communications Portfolio Committee Chair, Kusela Duko. The minister has dismissed this all, saying it's a political ploy, it's a campaign, and so on and so forth. What is your take? I'm going to play you a few voice notes also on this issue.
Tshidi, if the issue is Sitta, then why isn't Soli, instead of wanting to privatize and do away with Sitta, why doesn't he just capacitate it and fix the leadership issues at Sitta and make sure that it's working like a well-oiled machine rather than to privatize it and do away with it completely? Why is it that everything that they want to do as the DA ministers must be private? Why don't you just fix state enterprises and make them work? Why do you constantly have to privatize things when you are in a position of power to fix it? So fix it. Don't want to privatize it and do away with the job because you don't want to fix the problem.
Thank you so much for that. I kept Karabo here for a little bit because, yes, he delivered the traffic, but he had very strong views about the CAF. We are also speaking about the violence that we saw. I'm worried about taxi violence, so we will be speaking to MEC Kidiboni Diadetlabela in just a few. But Karabo, you had a view. So people say that what we saw in the violence with the North African teams, that's the culture. You're saying it's a culture of football.
It's a norm. It's a norm across the world because we see these kind of behavior in South America where a team loses and then the fans just start fighting and the players also join in, and it's just a whole big chaos. So I'm not really surprised when it comes to soccer because you don't see it in other sports like rugby. Rugby is more of a violent sport, but then the fans and the players after that, there's just calm and a sportsmanship. So with this one specifically, particularly with CAF, I feel always the northern countries, yes, have always been hostile to the southern countries. I don't know why, but it's just the way it is.
It's not acceptable. Thank you so much. That's Karabo Charlie from Traffic. Kola in Santon, you also wanted to quickly weigh in on what we've been seeing on our soccer pitches.
Hi, Tshidi. Yeah, 2 quick points. Look, it's just Groundhog Day with the North African teams, unfortunately. This is nothing new. And it's just their political stance on Africa as a whole. I mean, you can see, which countries out of the African Union or pulled out. And even a lot of North African players, and with any sport for that matter, when they win international accolades, it's almost like it's difficult for them to acknowledge that they are from Africa. But the second point, which for me is the most important point, was I was actually quite appalled with how SAPS handled this. I mean, this is the first line of defense in our country. And, they're the ones with the weapons, but they were the ones being shoved around by soccer players from another country. And I just found that quite interesting that they could not assert their force and their presence and command respect from these guys. Because I tell you now, if a South African team went to Algeria and did the exact same thing, I promise you now, it wouldn't be long before the entire team is probably detained, for God knows how long. So I actually think we need a full report from SAPS as to why they failed to contain that situation. I mean, the fact that they were there, indicates that, the authorities had a whiff that things
they should have learned from Sundowns. They should have learned from Stellenbosch. Exactly. I did raise the issue of inadequate security earlier on, because that's something I also don't understand. Why is it that we're not rising to the occasion? Kola, thank you so much. That's Kola out in sentencing. Actually, we do need a report from the police. I don't think that I disagree with that, because they're there and they're overwhelmed. How does that work? We must find better ways to deal with it. I'm not satisfied at all of us saying, oh, that's how it is. I want the answer. Is it sanctions? Is it fines? What must law enforcement do? I want a way that we can curb this, so that next time that they are in this country, we don't see what we saw with Sundowns, with Stellenbosch, and with Pirates.
For more about 702,
go to primemediaplus.com.
So earlier I mentioned that I think a low-level war is back at play in the taxi industry. The clashes have claimed at least the lives of 30 people last month alone. That's 30 people who've died in March due to the conflict of the taxi industry. This is an admission our Premier Panyaza Lesufi made at the policing summit on Tuesday. The day before he made that admission, 3 marshals were gunned down in Soweto. Is it just about the routes? Is it about permits? Why is it always violence when it comes to our taxis? I know that a few days ago, this particular show spoke on this issue around taxis. I know Clement spoke to Theo Malele from the National Taxi Association. And I found it really worrying when he spoke about the attitude of violence in the industry. Before I bring on the MEC, I just want you to listen to this quickly.
The rules of engagements are such that, at some point you need to agree to disagree, and you end up finding solutions to the problems. I mean, no problem, can be unsurmountable. I mean, this country's problems rather were resolved, using a dialogue. So this actually showed us as people that the only best way of resolving our differences can be, utilizing dialogue, because what currently is gripping the country is unacceptable, and it does not even serve the purpose, because at the end of it all, they will still have to come back, sit down and discuss a way forward. So there is no way that this, acts of violence would not beget other acts of violence. So it is just...
There's going to be a retaliation.
There's going to be a retaliation, It's going to be a retaliation. And it's just unfortunate that the industry is being characterized by this cloud of violence. And this has been happening from days in memoriam. Yeah. And this really seeks serious intervention.
That's the voices there of Tshidi Madia from the National Taxi Association and Clement Manyathela, who hosts the show. And it's interesting, and he's not wrong, that violence begets violence. And that's how many of us view and relate to the taxi industry, that this is an industry that is violent. It's an industry that many suggest that government is scared to actually tackle and to bring in line and to manage it even better. I am joined on the line now by Kidiwoni Diade-Tlhabela, MEC for Roads and Transport in the province. MEC, good morning. Welcome to Radio 702.
Tshidi Dumela, and good morning to 702 listeners.
MEC, before I even put questions to you, I want you to listen to what Tshidi Madia said about what is the problem. He spoke about violence, but he then spoke about government's role in what has gone wrong. So before I ask you to have your piece, I'd just like you to listen to a little bit of what Theo said about what is going wrong in the industry at the moment.
Let me clarify, Brathio. So are you saying that there are some people, even in government, who issue out licenses that are fraudulent and not in line with the law to some of the taxi associations, and that's why you would end up fighting among each other because you've got a license, you've been operating since a long time ago, and then here's someone else who says, well, I also have a permit to operate here, but it's actually fraudulent.
You've just nailed it, my brother. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So which is it? Is it the transport department that's responsible for approving these licenses?
Obviously, yes. Obviously, it's within that department.
MEC, the guest there, Tshidi Madia, places a lot of blame to what's going wrong, in part to the transport department, in part to government. Your assessment, what is the heart of the issue? Is it permits? Is it unlawful? Is it fight over routes? What's the heart of what's happening? Why are 30 people dead in our province due to taxi violence?
Tshidi, you just said a profound statement. Why are we not rising to the occasion? And I mean, I've been in this responsibility for 2.5 years, and the story is the same. And we have acknowledged the mishaps of the past, and that there were duplications on some of the routes, not all of them. There has been challenges of operating licenses in the province. And in responding to that, we created a platform where we work closely with the industry itself, not only them and other public transport service providers like e-hailers, scholar transport, and bus operators. We have a committee that sits every Friday from 6 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock. The scheduled issues, scheduled items, dealing with issue by issue and resolving. And we're getting there. What surprises me, if indeed that they are fighting, the dispute is about routes, payments, why are they still continuing when there's a platform? We have set aside time to deal with conflicts. There's a platform where everybody who is in conflict must come there and discuss. And the department has set aside time. We're correcting things. We're correcting the mishaps of the mistakes of the. They are part of us in resolving that. But they continue to kill each other. Is it true that in Mawiga, in the north of Pretoria, where they just killed each other this week, are they killing each other for the permit and the dispute? And why would you continue to fight and kill each other when you know there's a process that is to correct the challenges that you are faced with? We've called for camp. We've been discussing for quite some time, Tshidi, with them. We now understand, and I think it's time we as government make a decision on behalf of the silenced, the victims that are continuing to be bullied, harassed on a daily basis by these unscrupulous men who really do not care about the business itself and believe that being in taxi industry, it's a fundraising event. It's angering us because we have extended ourselves. We are sitting with them every week on a Friday to resolve issues, and they still continue to kill each other. I do not believe, from where I'm sitting, I might be subjective, but this is criminality, and government needs to act. For quite some time, government has been allowing. We are a public participatory democracy. We consult extensively. We've done it. I'm at a point where I said to Premier, we've been consulting. I've been here for 2.5 years. These guys see me almost every week. We sit on their issues. We have put systems now in place. They are agreeing, they're giving input. Why are they still fighting? Why are they still killing each other? This is criminality. And maybe it's time we call things by their name.
It's been time. From the very beginning, we should have called it what it is. You speak about how long this has happened, and you say you've been there for 2.5 years. MEC, I was a child when taxis were not allowed in Leondale because they were fighting. Correct. I know the late Khabisi Msunkutu used to actually stop taxis from functioning. Ismail Vadi has done this, MEC, many MECs. So clearly the fact that we keep coming back to the cycle where you then have to make threats, where you have to take extraordinary measures, tells you that something is wrong. And you now keep saying, well, we must call it what it is. It's criminality. That suggests to me that government is not doing enough in arresting the perpetrators because somebody is pulling a trigger. Somebody killed the marshals. So if you recognize it's criminality and the platform that you have isn't being utilized, why aren't we reinforcing the police, hunting people down, arresting people, if that's what we recognize is the problem?
That's what we have elevated the issue. By the way, since January, we've been in discussions with law enforcement agencies in our province, including the state security, that we think, because they too categorize this as a threat in a high risk, and we think we're at a point where we can no longer sit back and no one is arrested. By the way, ever since the killings started in our province on taxi violence, no one has been arrested. No one, there's no case. And we need to start dealing with it. It's not normal. Yesterday we met with the women in the industry, just to draw strength, but also, I'm a product of women's struggles. And when it was tough with apartheid, it's women who stood up against this. Let me tell you what's happening. Tata Malele is correct. There's bullying and harassment. Let me tell you, when there's a conflict like this, ordinary members to put money on the table. Ordinary members are charged 800 rands per week. Every day there's money that they must put in someone's pocket. They are even afraid to talk about it. And my predecessors has closed ranks. And 2 months, 3 months, there's a lull. They come to the table. They want to negotiate. They will stop fighting. And then they don't stop. And I think this time we must do things differently. And that's why we're announcing our intention to close the ranks as per Section 91 of NLTA, just to make sure that we don't continue having this. The war must stop. The guns must be silenced. Our intention is to close for 6 months. And in that 6 months, we are overhauling the whole thing. The operating license, they are saying to us there's duplications. They don't own those routes. They are licensed for about 7 years to operate, and they must come again and again to come and renew them. So they don't own them. And that's why I say government must really be tough and take stance. I've been very consultative and giving them hope. Also, they being part of resolving this matter and coming up with suggestions and solutions to the challenges. But they are not using the platform effectively. They are continuing to kill each other, especially in Water and Nandue. I think it's silliness, it's criminality, and we need to overhaul the whole system and withdraw all the operating licenses as they are and start afresh.
Just before I let you go, I do know you have a program in Soweto where at least 3 marshals were killed this week. MEC, you're closing the taxi ranks. Which ones are going to be affected, and when are you actually closing them down in order to start working on the overhaul?
So the decision is we are going to close operations where there are conflicts. The conflicts are in Johannesburg, mainly in Water and Nandue. There's also conflicts in Ekurhuleni as well as in the West Rand. And we are firm will not back down. Unfortunately for them, we've been giving them an opportunity. My predecessors did it, but we must do it differently now, is to withdraw all the operating license and get into a new regime and put proper systems in place so that we also get to know who's in our routes. You know, you should hear the things that ordinary members who are afraid to come out and raise the challenges they're faced with. There's people who will enter, who don't even have permits to operate in those routes, and they'll just arrive. So this mother yesterday was narrating the story that there's taxis that are not even licensed, they're not part of our association, but they come into the rank. You all go back and bonaba again, and then they go and rank. Luna, you sit and watch them, and that can happen for the whole year. That is harassment, that is bullying, and it must stop. And that's why women in the industry are saying we need to close, and this time close with a purpose that will help us have a permanent solution.
MEC, just before I let you go, one very quickly. What about commuters? They'll be worried about transport when you close down ranks.
Correct, yeah. One of the things that we are doing, remember, for us to implement Section 91, we need to be consultative, and amongst others is to consult also affected parties. So we spoke with other public transport operators, like e-hailers, as well as the bus industry and scholar transport people, and many other people who are licensed to shuttle individuals, that we will have to, technically the team will have to look into how then do we provide this important service to the people, including the metros and the municipalities. So it's a process. Once you intend to institute Section 91, you must first talk to the planning authority, which is municipalities. And I'm happy that City of Joburg is on board. Both MMC of Transport and MMC of Community Safety are with us on this. So obviously the team will technically look into the issue and how do we then accredit those service providers to go into communities and most importantly ensure that there's law enforcement on the ground. So we met with different law enforcement agencies last night.
All right, I think that's
going to roll out once we institute Section 91.
All right, thank you so much, MEC. That's MEC Kidiboni Diale Tabela, who is the Gauteng MEC for Roads and Transport, saying that they need to do things differently. We are saying you need to curb the crime. People should not be dying on our roads.
Let's walk the talk.
702.
We are taking your calls, voice notes, views. We're speaking about taxi violence at the moment. Fill in 4 ways. I'm going to ask you to keep it a little bit tight. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Tshidi. I think the biggest problem as well, what you have already mentioned about the duplication of the licenses. The main problem are the police as well. Most of the police, you talk about the subs, you talk about the metro police, they've got taxes. And the taxes are not in their names. It is, an example would be like, say, I've got a license to operate. I don't have money to buy a taxi. I'll get Tshidi taxi to operate under my name, and I'll pay Tshidi 600 rand or 700 rand a week. And somebody will have about 10 taxis like that. That's how they will survive. So there's just nowhere else the police will be able to stop the violence, unfortunately.
Thank you so much. That's filling forwards. Yes, the authorities are complicit. That's often what you find to be the problem. Here's some of your voice notes.
Morning, Tshidi. More regarding to the North African teams. This is because CAF doesn't have or is not giving enough sanctions and fines. The Club World Cup is coming. They wouldn't even dare do that to European teams after the game. They would ask them for t-shirts. They wouldn't even do that. So why are they doing that? Because there's no sanctions, there's no fines or consequences. That's why they're doing that.
Thank you so much. And with that, I bring the end to the open, and it's about consequences. Even with the taxi violence we see, it's consequences. What are they? 30 people dead in 1 month. No one has been arrested. Nothing's happened. That's what the MEC has said. How is that okay? How is that normal? Gauteng, South Africa, 30 people. Lives lost on the roads. Nothing's happened due to violence.